There's something I think that everyone gets wrong when it comes to using AI, and it's that they think too big. They're not thinking small enough. And what I mean by that is everyone's seeing big companies make huge benefit from using AI these days, but they're not realizing that they can use it themselves to improve their lives a little bit. And I think that makes people not want to use AI because they're thinking, oh, well, I don't want to run a business. I don't want to do X, Y, Z. I don't want to do more work. But they're not thinking, I want to improve this small aspect of my life a little bit. And to get this across, I'm going to introduce something I built over the weekend. So I like to read a lot. I read a lot of books, I read a lot of essays, I read a lot of blogs, even tweets and stuff like that as well. And I find personally that I learn the most when I extract information from these. I store it, but then I can actually look at it and read it again, and it's not just hidden away in my bookmarks or something like this. Other thing though is that it's kind of hard to capture this information sometimes, especially if you're reading a book or if you're reading a blog or something like this. It's really hard to capture that information or capture the part of it that you really enjoyed the most. So what I wanted to build was something where when I'm reading something, I can quickly take a highlight from what I'm reading and store it in a place that I usually look at and I usually want to learn more about the topic I've just consumed. And so I built this tool to help me do exactly that, which is essentially in a nutshell, as I'm reading, I can extract a note or a paragraph or as much as I want, store it in my notes app, and then maybe add my own little flair to it as well. So I'll first show you what it looks like. Over here, we have Obsidian. I've only started this recently, but I have a lot of book entries here that I got from my Kindle. And now I'm going to focus on the essays and blogs for this part. So, for example, if I'm reading this essay, so this was called Going Founder Mode on Cancer. It was an interesting post that kind of popped off a bit recently. This was a Substack I read. Essentially, the founder of GitLab, he went founder mode on his cancer and he's now in remission. So fair play to him. But it was fascinating, really interesting read. And oftentimes before, I would read this and that would be it. It would kind of go. I'd remember maybe snippets from it, but I wouldn't remember the core parts I liked a lot. And maybe there's something I want to revisit again. So I took some extracts from this. And before, if I wanted to do this, I might have to copy and paste it directly into Obsidian, or I'd have to email myself and then go back and check it or something like this. You can see here, I added a note to this, for example, and just little bits and bobs like that. So I only had a couple of excerpts here, but the idea now is it's like more reinforced in my mind because I actually went to the effort of storing it and adding my thought to it. So how does this work in practice? So I'm going to do it in two ways. Let's pick another essay. So founder mode kind of goes in line with the cancer essay, I think. But this is where that kind of came from. Paul Graham, the founder of Y Combinator, made this great post about how founder-led companies, even when they're big at scale, they have this certain energy about them where the founder will just get like very into details in a way that some people might think is micromanagey, but they do it in such a way where they're only focusing on the biggest problem facing them in that moment. And with that approach, they're able to systematically get rid of the big problems their company is facing today and start to offload the less important things to the rest of the team. And when I say less important things, it's not to diminish any work, but it's more so to rely on the team to execute playbooks that you know and trust are going to work. So let's say I'm reading this essay and I read here. In effect, there are two different ways to run a company, founder mode and manager mode. Till now, most people, even in Silicon Valley, have implicitly assumed that skilling a startup meant switching to manager mode. But we can infer the existence of another mode from the dismay of founders who've tried it, and the success of their attempts to escape from it. So let's say I like that. I would highlight it. And this is what I've built. So I built a Chrome extension, well, in my case, Brave, that I can press a hotkey and it will take this and add it to my notes. So I have my key as Command Shift Y. So first, it asked me for some tags. Obsidian is good at this kind of tagging system where you can add tags to your notes, and then afterwards then you can start to link different notes together. So let's add some tags. Let's say founder, business. I also like doing names of people here. Paul Graham. We'll put tech in there. That's fine. That's enough for now. Press enter. Add your thoughts to this highlight. So I'll just say it's interesting that it goes against the grain of what people thought before. Just a little line. It doesn't have to be elaborate here, but the idea is if I want to expand on it more in my own way afterwards, this might give me an idea as what to add on to it afterwards. And then okay. Okay, and let's say I'm reading again, blah, 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 blah. And I read this bit. For example, Steve Jobs used to run an annual retreat for what he considered the 100 most important people at Apple. And these were not the 100 people highest on the org chart. Can you imagine the force of will it would take to do this at the average company? And yet imagine how useful such a thing could be. It could make a big company feel like a startup. Steve presumably wouldn't have kept having these retreats if they didn't work. But I've never heard of another company doing this. So is it a good idea or a bad one? We still don't know. That's how little we know about Founder Mode. And let's say I want to add this as well. So Command-Shift-Y. And because it already knows that this article has been formed and I've already added a thought on it already, I don't need to go through the tagging again. It knows that this is going to append onto whatever system I made already. So I can say here, founder-led initiatives are still so early in their lifeline. Startup culture, etc., is in its infancy. Okay, and let's say I read the rest, and that's it. I've read it all, and I've added everything I want. So now let's have a look at my notes. And you can see here, there's this founder mode section that wasn't there before. And this is exactly the 2 points that I took as well with my note. And now all of a sudden I can start to build up this repository of content that I've read and enjoyed enough that I actually wanted to engage on it. And engage on it then will help me reinforce that information a bit stronger. And that way I'll remember the most important parts, and I can even expand on this in the future. So with these tags, I can even start to expand tags into highlights, but maybe I highlight another thing from Paul Graham in the future and I can see that there are some similarities. I can start to make these links and I can start to maybe even write my own content about it or explore these ideas in my own way using Obsidian. So this has been a game changer for me. As you can see, I've done a lot of essays and blogs. This is just from the last maybe week or two. Another Paul Graham one here, for example. Dario Amodi, he had some great ones on kind of AI doomerism. And you can see I'm adding huge sections here. And it all kind of stores in there. So I've really, really been enjoying this process. And I think I'm going to keep on doing it again and again and again. This workflow also works for Twitter. And I know there's a lot of other people out there like that as well, same as me, where I'll just bookmark something and I will never check my bookmarks again. It's just a nether of darkness where nothing ever comes out again. So I think the neat thing about this is because I use my Obsidian quite a lot and I'm reviewing it a bit as well, and it's also separate from social media, so I don't mind checking that. Whereas, on Twitter, you might get stuck in a doom scroll or get sucked in with something else. This is a nice way to kind of bypass bookmarks and actually get use of things that you want to save. And for example, like this is a pretty long article. Maybe I don't want to save everything, but there might be something in here when I'm reading it that I want to save. So I'll just show you that workflow now. Say I'm reading blah, 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 blah. So let's read this bit. What participation in the American system brought was not efficiency or competence, it brought the guarantee. The 3 unspoken words, I am a net American taxpayer, and violence does not happen here. So let's say I want to save this. So same workflow, Command-Shift-Y. It knows it's a new page, so some tags. I read this article this morning, I didn't actually add anything from this, but I just wanted to show you the flow here. So some tags for this would be history, Doomerism, maybe geopolitics. And then my thoughts, history, rhymes. What was once the same for Romans is the same here for modern USA. And then, yeah, okay. And I will show you over here. This is called Civis Romanus Sum by Wilmandus. And we see it down here. So yeah, this is also usable on X. Anything that you can read on the web, it's usable here. You could even do it on a YouTube video if you want to save a comment that you saw. Any text that you want to save when you're reading on the browser on your desktop, you can use this tool. But this is what I mean. People think, oh, I need to use AI to build something huge and drastic, etc. This is just a quality of life thing that has helped me enjoy my favorite activity, which is reading. I'm able to retain more information, and it was a very small build that I did completely in Codex using English. So I think people need to realize more and more that you can really just work on problems that you have in your own life, small things that you want to be a bit more efficient. And maybe you want to have an extra half an hour in your day and you're spending half an hour doing something else. You can shave that time off and you can get that time back in your day just by trying to find these areas where you can improve upon it. And the nice thing is, if it improves it for you, it's probably going to improve it for other people too. So other people will want to use this sort of stuff. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial, and I hope it kind of inspires you a little bit to try and think, how can I build stuff in my life that will help me with what I need to do?